Today, we're going to talk about inflection points and major changes in a character's life and the world around them and how that affects how you create the character. So stick around and let's talk about things that change your character forever. Hey there. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if it's your first time here. I'm John Hartness. I'm the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books, as well as the author of over 40 novels, including The Black Knight Chronicles, Bubba the Monster Hunter, and Quincy Harker, Demon Hunter. And today I want to talk to you about inflection points. I want to talk to you about inflection points in your work and inflection points in real life, because I feel like we're seeing these more and more often. Part of that is because we're constantly bombarded with news these days, and partly because the news is pretty damn earth-shaking a lot of the time. So this is also going to follow up a little on my earlier video about how politics affects writers and writing and how everything is political. And if you think I should shut up and write, you should piss off and find another channel. An inflection point is one of those times in either history or your personal life where, just like that, everything was different. The first big inflection point in my life was 40 years ago yesterday when the Challenger blew up. That was the first of Gen X's "where were you when?" Everyone who lives through these big global inflection points remembers where they were when they first heard the news. My mother always remembered where she was when she heard that Kennedy was shot. Not even that he had died, when she heard that the president had been shot. For a long time, I remembered where I was when I saw that Reagan had been shot. But it wasn't generational. I remembered because I happened to be home from school that day and I saw it on television moments after it happened. But it wasn't the kind of thing that on the anniversary of the event, nobody asked me, well, where were you when President Reagan got shot? Frankly, I don't even remember what the anniversary of Reagan's getting shot was. But I remember where I was when the Challenger blew up. I was in my middle school auditorium. I remember where I was when I heard the first plane hit the towers. Everybody does. Everybody past a certain age. But if you're an adult, you remember where you were. That's an inflection point. Some of them aren't that quick. January 6th, 2021 was an inflection point. It wasn't an instant, but everything was different. A group of armed and angry people stormed the United States Capitol. Unprecedented. These events change us as people, and thus it changes us as writers. After 9/11, there was a spate of 9/11 inspired plays. The Guys was the one I was part of. I designed lights for a production of it many moons ago. But that was a response. These moments in history inspire responses from artists, from creators, and they change you. My brother died when I was a senior in college. Heart attack while driving. Just like that. My world was different. Obviously, my sister and my niece's worlds were different. My family's world was different in an instant. Will always be different. My father died 6.5 years ago of cancer. There wasn't one moment. It was a long process. We're not the same. Your characters have these moments too. And it's important for you as the creator to not just have the big inflection points, but you also need to address your character's internal inflection points. And it may be that none of these are on the page. The assassination of John F. Kennedy was a massive inflection point for the United States. Spawned best-selling book and a TV show called, oddly enough, 11/22/63. Also, the book Time Rider by A.J. Hartley also deals with the Kennedy assassination. One of the seasons of Umbrella Academy was all about the Kennedy assassination. That's a cultural touchstone moment that everyone of a certain age can relate to. And even those of us who weren't alive when it happened, we know. There wasn't a subtitle on Stephen King's novel 11/22/63. It didn't say, the day Kennedy was killed. Everybody knew. Okay, not everybody. The vast majority of the book buying public knew. If you titled a book 9/11/01, most everybody would know what you were writing about. I hope that we can sometime soon move back into more boring times and stop making history so damned often. The running joke amongst a lot of my friends is I'd like to go back to living in precedented times. But for your characters, everything is unprecedented. And you, as the writer, if you're writing books set in our world, which I tend to do, my stuff is primarily urban fantasy, and it's an alternate version of the world we live in. So I have to figure out how I address these global or national or personal inflection points in my books. I said in my video on getting political that I changed the way I wrote after Sandy Hook. And that's true, I did. I also changed the way I wrote after the protests in the summer of 2020. I changed character arcs, I changed plot lines, because I didn't want to write good cop characters anymore, because I didn't have a whole lot of faith in the police after watching them murder people. Going to be real hard for me to write another Quincy Harker book with him working for the Department of Homeland Security's Paranormal Division, now that the Department of Homeland Security just murdered 2 people in the streets of Minneapolis. And yeah, I said what I said. So I don't know how I'm going to address that in my fiction. I decided that COVID didn't exist in my books. I decided that those things didn't happen. I may decide that Donald Trump doesn't exist in my books. I may decide that Kristi Noem and, what's that skinny the Timu Himmler, Stephen Miller. I may decide that he doesn't exist in my books. But it's a decision that I have to make as the writer. And that's something you have to decide. Even if you're writing in alternate worlds that have no connection to our own, you have to know enough about the world and its history and the impact of that history on your characters to be able to write it effectively. So you do have to do a little world building. You don't have to show me. You've heard me talk about that. I don't need pages and pages and pages of your damn world building. Brandon, yeah, I'm looking at you, buddy. He does not watch this channel. And he knows I'm kind of joking. But also, that dude loves his world building and magic systems. Jesus. But you have to know what happened. You have to know the historical events that led to whatever's going on. When I was writing Unforgiven, I had to know plenty of things in the history of the nation I was writing that never made it onto the page. I had to know those inflection points for those characters. I had to know what was their Challenger, what was their Kennedy assassination, what was their 9/11, what was their where were you when moment. You have to know these things for your character. You don't have to tell us. But dropping little hints about these things makes your story and your world richer. It makes them deeper. In the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, the world building is solid, but it's not pages upon pages. It's not this massive, deep explanation of the finance system. But what we have for that are little vignettes in messages left by other crawlers. And that's how we get these moments. Now, we don't yet have in the series the huge inflection point for the world, but we have seen multiple inflection points for characters. And these are things that maybe it popped up in book 5, maybe it popped up in book 6, but the author knew this stuff was coming from book 1 or 2. I'm only giving him so much credit for knowing the entire arc of the story with details from the jump. I'm going to guess that a lot of things that are in book 6 were figured out in book 3. But that's how it goes. You don't have to know every single major plot point of your series before you start writing your series. In fact, I recommend against knowing every plot point before you start, because otherwise, what are you going to find? But these big pivot points for your world are important. And you do need to have a couple of those locked in. When I started writing fiction, I was pretty bad to use the death of a female loved one as a motivation for a hero. Did it with Harker, did it with Bubba. Fridged both their first loves. Sorry. I'd like to think I would do that better now, because now I know that it's kind of cliche. But those are pivot points for those characters. When Harker lost his first love to a Nazi, he became very anti-Nazi. Not just a little bit. Not like Nazis are assholes and I'm going to punch them. Like, I'm going to murder them all. And then I think I wrote that it was several years after that when he came out of his berserker rage. Yeah, I read a lot of Wolverine comics when I was a kid. Bubba, after blowing out his knee, lost his first fiance. And then he decided to hunt down the monsters that killed her. That's a pretty solid motivation for a character. And a little cliche if I'm going to own it. And I may as well. But you need to build these things into your character. Not just what is the catalyst. For example, Spider-Man. The inflection point for Spider-Man was not getting bitten by a radioactive spider. That was the catalyst. The inflection point was when Uncle Ben died. Because that was the moment when everything changed. Because he was still a goofy kid before he realized exactly what that line meant. And you know the line I mean, right? With great power comes great responsibility. Wish somebody would tell some of our federal agents that. But you need to build these pivot points into your character because they allow for more depth. They give you some place to go. And they let you turn a bad guy into a good guy. Or a good guy into a bad guy. I mean, Padme died, Anakin became Darth Vader. Yeah, I know I'm oversimplifying. Also, to really go deep into that, I'd have to watch the first 3 movies again, and that is literally never happening. Bilbo giving Frodo the ring wasn't the big pivot point. The ring wraiths coming to the Shire. That was the pivot point. And then the creation of the Fellowship was another pivot point. These inflection points can serve as really good story beats, but they also can take place off the page. They don't have to happen as part of your actual narrative. They can be backstory. You can dribble these things in here and there, and it'll make your characters richer. It'll make your world richer, especially if it's a big global pivot like the Challenger, like 9/11, like the Kennedy assassination, like the attempted insurrection on January 6th. All of these things are turning points in the world. So they will affect your character. What are yours? And what are some of your favorites from fiction? Tell me what some of your favorite inflection points in fiction are. Maybe it's from comics, maybe it's from movies, maybe it's from fiction, maybe it's from a book. Let me know in the comments what your favorite inflection points are. And look, if you stuck around this long, you may as well give me a like and a subscribe and ring the bell to get notified. And if you want your name on the screen, like these cool people, you can become a member of the channel. And hey, I'll get $5 a month and you'll get a warm, fuzzy feeling in your little tum-tum, as Simon Miller says. So, thanks. Stay warm, stay safe, and ice. Thanks.